Good day. This is the Corrupt True Crime Podcast, and I'm Charlie Cruz. Today's episode is about one of the most devastating betrayals in American intelligence history. We're diving deep into the story of Aldrich Ames, the CIA officer who sold his country's secrets to the Soviet Union from the heart of Virginia, leading to what many consider the greatest intelligence disaster of the Cold War. For nearly a decade, Ames walked the halls of CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia, living a double life that would cost at least 10 American assets their lives and compromise countless operations. This wasn't a case of ideological conviction or patriotic fervor for another cause. This was simpler and somehow more chilling. It was about greed, ego, and a man who believed he was smarter than everyone around him. How does a trusted intelligence officer with access to the nation's most closely guarded secrets decide to become a traitor? What drives someone to put a price tag on human lives? And perhaps most troubling of all, how did he get away with it for so long despite leaving a trail of red flags that should have been impossible to ignore? Today we'll explore the man behind the betrayal, the damage he caused, and the painstaking investigation that finally brought him down. This is the story of Aldrich Ames, the mole who lived in plain sight. There's a peculiar skill to betraying your country during lunch hour. April something, mid-80s, a CIA officer named Rick Ames walks out of headquarters in Langley, drives over to the Soviet embassy on 16th Street, and just strolls in. No elaborate plan, no years of careful cultivation, no ideological awakening. He walks up to the reception desk and asks to speak with someone from the KGB. In his briefcase, he's carrying the names of 3 Soviet intelligence officers. Also in his briefcase, arguably, is the fate of at least 10 people. His price for starting what would become the most catastrophic intelligence breach in CIA history. $50,000. About what you'd pay for a decent luxury car. He needed it to cover his credit card bills. Here's the thing about Cold War espionage that the movies never quite capture. It's mostly desk work. No car chases, no gadgets that fit in your shoe. You're reading files, analyzing reports, occasionally meeting nervous sources in hotel rooms, and if you're Aldrich Ames, you're doing it with a hangover, harboring a low-grade resentment that you're not being paid enough for knowing so much. Rick Ames was born into the spy game. His father worked for the CIA, which meant growing up around the intelligence community like other kids grew up around accounting firms or law practices. It was the family business. He joined the agency while still in college, started as a clerk, worked his way up to operations officer, posted overseas, handled sources, specialized in Soviet matters, the kind of career that sounds impressive at cocktail parties. Except Ames wasn't particularly impressive at it. Performance reviews used words like competent and adequate. He had a serious drinking problem, showed up hungover, once passed out during an operation. His first marriage collapsed. He was drowning in debt from the divorce, credit cards maxed out, living in a dingy apartment, driving a beat-up car. And he was about to marry a Colombian woman named Rosario, who had distinctly expensive tastes. The mathematics was simple and cruel. He made about $60,000 a year, owed $50,000, and wanted to live like he made 3 times his salary. Most people in this situation take on extra work or accept their limitations. Ames had a different solution. He had access to one of the most valuable commodities in the intelligence world. He knew which Soviet intelligence officers were secretly working for America. His job, ironically, was counterintelligence. He was supposed to catch Soviet spies. He decided to become one instead. That April walk-in was brazen even by espionage standards. CIA officers are trained to avoid Soviet facilities like they're radioactive. Going near the embassy could trigger surveillance alerts, get you pulled into a security review, end your career. Ames just wandered in on his lunch break like he was picking up dry cleaning. His pitch was clever in its simplicity. Those first 3 names he brought? Soviet officers already known to be loyal to Moscow. It was a free sample, proof he had real access without immediately committing the worst betrayal. The message was clear. I can identify your actual traitors. Here's evidence, I know your organization. The KGB handed him $50,000 in cash. 2 months later, he came back with the real merchandise. This time he brought a packet that compromised over a dozen major CIA sources inside the Soviet Union. Human intelligence assets who'd been working for America, some for decades. The KGB codenamed him Kolokol, Russian for bell, perhaps because he was ringing the death knell for American intelligence operations. What followed was called the Year of the Spy, though that nickname obscures the horror. The Soviets systematically arrested CIA assets across their territory. Dmitry Polyakov, a Soviet general who'd been spying for America since the 60s, providing priceless military intelligence. Arrested and killed. Adolf Tolkachev, who'd given the US aviation secrets worth billions in research and development. Arrested and killed. Sergei Motorin, Valery Martinov, Leonid Poleshchuk, all killed. At least 10 people, possibly 20, paid with their lives because a CIA officer needed money for his credit card bills.
My name is Tom Sachs. I'm an artist in New York City. For nearly 2 decades, I have been collaborating with Nike.
Nike running is for runners. Nike basketball is for basketball. Nike craft is for everyone else.
The tradecraft Ames used was straight from the Cold War handbook. Dead drops in suburban Virginia parks, chalk marks on mailboxes as signal sites, encrypted messages. Except he was sloppy about it. He'd photocopy classified documents he was authorized to see, just walk them out of headquarters, pass them along. Sometimes he'd meet handlers directly during foreign travel. When he was posted to Rome, he continued spying from Italy, meeting his KGB contacts over Italian dinners while his wife shopped with Soviet money. The Soviets paid reliably and generously. By the time he was arrested, he'd received somewhere between $2 and $4 million. They had another $2 million waiting in Russian accounts. This made him one of the highest paid traitors in American history. And here's the darkly comic aspect. He spent it so obviously that it should have been a flashing neon sign saying extra income source. He paid $540,000 cash for a house in Arlington. Cash. On a government salary. He drove a Jaguar, wore expensive Italian suits, took European vacations, bought art and jewelry. His wife showed up to embassy parties dripping in designer everything. Colleagues noticed but assumed it was family money. Maybe an inheritance from Rosario's Colombian relatives. The CIA had a culture of trust that bordered on willful blindness. You didn't question your colleagues' finances. You certainly didn't suspect a career officer with clearances and a CIA father of being a mole. But the arrests couldn't be ignored. When that many assets disappear, when operations collapse across the board, when the Soviets seem to know everything you're planning, someone's talking. The CIA launched a mole hunt. It just took them years to look seriously at their own. The investigation was maddeningly slow. They knew they had a penetration, but the agency was huge. Hundreds of people had varying levels of access. They looked at timing, who knew what when, who'd had access to which compromised operations. The net gradually narrowed. Financial analysis finally did what field investigation couldn't. Investigators subpoenaed bank records, traced cash deposits, documented purchases. The house alone was damning. Nobody legitimately makes that much money working at CIA. The FBI took over surveillance, codenamed it Operation Night Mover. They watched him execute dead drops, photographed him making chalk signal marks, went through his trash and found classified documents. They discovered computer files with notes about his Soviet contacts. By early '94, they had enough for arrest. They took him on a February morning, Ames and Rosario both. The FBI waited until he was outside his house, away from potential weapons or evidence he could destroy. Simple takedown, no drama. He cooperated immediately. Perhaps he was relieved. 9 years of looking over your shoulder, wondering if every car behind you is surveillance, if every colleague suspects you. He'd been living on borrowed time, borrowed money, and borrowed security clearances. The plea bargain was straightforward. Cooperation in exchange for avoiding the most severe penalty. His wife got 5 years. Ames got life without parole. He's currently residing in a federal prison in Indiana, which is considerably less comfortable than his $500,000 house in Arlington. The damage assessment took years. Over 100 intelligence operations compromised. Billions of dollars in wasted intelligence efforts. An entire generation of Soviet sources arrested or imprisoned. The CIA's reputation damaged. Morale devastated. Security procedures overhauled, financial monitoring implemented. The agency learned expensively that trusting your own people isn't the same as verifying them.
Building a new product? Temez Labs takes you from napkin sketch to the App Store. Trusted by Fortune 500s for quality, security, and speed. Book your free strategy session at temez.ai.
Ames himself remains almost aggressively uninteresting in his motivations. No grand ideology, no political awakening, no sophisticated rationalization. just a mediocre bureaucrat who wanted more money than his talent could earn legitimately. He saw an opportunity, took it, and spent 9 years trading human lives for a lifestyle upgrade. When asked about his victims, he's expressed various levels of regret, though it's hard to know what remorse means from someone who kept taking Soviet money even after people started dying because of him. The truly unsettling aspect isn't Ames himself. It's how easily he did it, how long he got away with it, how simple the scheme was. No complex heist, no brilliant long game. Just a man with access to valuable information and an organization that didn't watch its own carefully enough. The most sophisticated intelligence agency in the world, defeated by basic financial desperation and institutional complacency. There's a tendency to mythologize spies, to imagine them as either heroes or brilliant villains. Ames was neither. He was a troubled person with money problems who sold people's lives because it was easier than living within his means. The banality of it is perhaps the most damning aspect. Treason at the level of grocery shopping, betrayal as financial planning. He destroyed families, gutted intelligence operations, got people killed, and used the money to buy a Jaguar. The car probably depreciated faster than his conscience. The thing about brilliant schemes is that they always end with handcuffs and bars, because no matter how clever you think you are, the house always wins. Now, if you enjoyed our show, tap that follow button and 5 stars in our ratings. Catch you next time.
Grab news. Ames.